everybody, I'm Amir Alwani and you're watching the 6th episode of the Potent News Blast. A few weeks ago I saw a documentary sitting on the shelves at the local library here, and I took a look at the back of it, and it looked like it was really slamming Iran as much as possible, completely demonizing that country and making it look like that was the biggest threat to the world right now. Here's the synopsis from the library's website. Alright, so here's the Halifax Public Library's website, and over here we have the summary of this movie, which is called Iranium. Alright, so the summary. Since the Islamic Revolution of 1979, the Iranian regime has been following the principles installed by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Iran's citizens and the West have been held hostage as the Iranian leadership attempts to spread the revolution beyond Iran's borders. Now, the world's largest state sponsor of terror and brutal violator of human rights stands on the threshold of acquiring nuclear weapons. Utilizing rare footage, archived news reports, and interviews with leading experts, Iranium exposes the actions and intentions of Iran's leaders and the American responses over the past 31 years. And by the way, people, I would argue that it's worthwhile to go back as far as at least 1953, when there was a CIA-backed coup in Iran. So 31 years, not enough. The film presents the dangers Iran now poses to America, the Middle East, and the rest of the free world, and the options currently being considered to combat those threats. Container. Alright, so first of all, the West and the US is not exactly the free world as far as I'm concerned. But the makers of this film would have you believe that Iran is the biggest threat to the world, not genetically modified organisms, not the Gulf oil spill or Fukushima, not the global covert aerosol operation that is spewing aluminum, barium, strontium, and nanotechnology on most of us, is probably happening in most countries at this point. And even in countries where they don't really have the guts to do it in that country, they'll still sort of spray, beside it. Especially if it's a small country, and they know the jet streams and they know how it goes, so they just spray beside it and then it goes on that country anyway. So apparently, despite all that, Iran is the biggest threat to the world, and I don't believe that. I mean, I don't know every little single thing about their leader and their country. I'm not there, and I have a lot of reading to do, but I think it's worth noting that when you go and you wave the finger at this country and you say, you guys are starting to have nukes, you gotta admit that the 5 permanent members of the Security Council in the UN, which is just the neo-imperial arm of the globalists, you gotta admit that those 5 permanent members of the Security Council have nuclear weapons themselves. And if that's not bad enough, it's also worth noting that one of these nuke-owning countries, the US, has just bought 7 years worth of ammunition for rifles to be used domestically. That's right, domestically.
Department of Homeland Security buying up enough ammo to wage 7-year war against the American people, by Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, editor of naturalnews.com, written April 22nd, 2012. I'm not going to read this entire thing, but briefly, as we recently reported, the Department of Homeland Security, an agency that says its main purpose now is to thwart homegrown terrorism, has awarded a contract to ammunition manufacturer ATK for acquiring 450 million rounds of .40 caliber hollow point ammo. You can view the announcement of the ammunition purchase at this press release. Click there. Our initial coverage of the story is at click here. Many Natural News readers may not know this, but hollow point ammunition is never purchased for practice or training. This ammunition is purchased for the sole purpose of being used in active fighting. At the same time, it is a violation of the Geneva Convention to use hollow point ammunition on the battlefield. This is crucial to understand. It means the occupying federal government is acquiring this ammunition to be used against the American people. Furthermore, Department of Homeland Security does not fight wars overseas. It is a domestic agency with domestic responsibilities. Its purchase of .40 caliber ammunition is a clear and obvious indication that the Department of Homeland Security plans to wage war on the American people. How big of a war? Here's where this investigation gets really interesting. A 7-year war with America, and I'll leave you guys to read the rest.
Now we know that alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and the FBI, and the whole gang there in the U.S. has basically given guns to Mexican drug cartels and other neighboring countries, with the hopes that the gun violence will spill over to the north, allowing the U.S. to demonize gun ownership and basically stop people from having guns. So the gun rights situation is obviously paralleling the nuclear situation, the basic message being, we get weapons and you do not. When people advocate laws that limit gun rights, that obviously excludes the police and the military. You do know that, right? That they get to still walk around the streets carrying guns to push you around, but you don't get to have any. So the people who might one day force you to get vaccinated against your will, and people who might want you to strip naked outside your house before they ship you off to some tent or whatnot, they're still allowed to have guns when they try to do these things to you when you're labeled an enemy for no good reason, or when you're just not following orders. So if you think that sounds far-fetched, I would highly recommend clicking here to watch a documentary called Enemy of the State, Camp FEMA 2, where you'll see an interview with a person who was trained by the Department of Homeland Security to do just these kinds of things. And for all the Canadians out there who think this does not apply to them because it's another country, Harper just bought thousands of drones from Israel for domestic use here at home. So if you want to hear people talk about that, click here or here. So if you do your homework, you'll find that the growing global tyranny that is unfolding across the entire earth in many different ways, shapes, and forms, it's all coordinated, and it's all emanating from the same power structure, which is a network of secret societies which are in turn controlled by 13 ruling families. See, they like the number 13. They also like the number 33, and I would submit to you that that's why Section 33 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms here in Canada is the section that basically nullifies some of our most important rights for a period of 5 years. Alright, so if the destruction of half of our rights and freedoms here in Canada does not really bother you at all, I'm just going to run you through a few stories that have to do with Canada, which might bother you a tiny bit. I'm not trying to alarm you here, I'm just trying to let you know what's going on in Canada.
Secret GPS tracker terrifies Ontario man. This is from CBC News, February 21st, 2012. Ontario Provincial Police unable to identify who planted device on truck. This is by Kathy Tomlinson. An Ontario man says he's angry and frightened after discovering someone hid a GPS tracking device under his vehicle, apparently to secretly monitor his movements. Quote, I was just doing a regular inspection on my truck, and I found this black box under my truck with flashing lights inside, Ben Farrell of Warsaw, Ontario, told Go Public. Quote, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was a bomb. We were scared to death. It felt like a movie, unreal. And I'll just leave it at that. You guys can read the rest. Press TV on February 8, 2012 reports Canada allows spy agency to use info obtained through torture. I'll leave you guys to read that. Next, from globalresearch.ca, Canada supports torture an instrument of terrorism propaganda, February 10, 2012. In the course of the past week, the Canadian government of Stephen Harper has made confusing statements regarding the role of torture as a means of obtaining information from arrested terrorist suspects. In December 2010, the Minister of Public Safety, Vic Taves, instructed the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, to use information obtained through torture in order to prioritize, quote, the protection of life and property. Which makes absolutely no sense to me. Moving on, in the House of Commons, Mr. Taves did not backtrack. Quote, information obtained by torture is always discounted, but the problem is, can one safely ignore it when Canadian lives and property are at stake? Jason Kenney, Minister of Citizenship, Immigration and Multiculturalism, added, of course we oppose the use of torture, but we believe that Canada's security agencies should prioritize, yes, the protection of life. Very Orwellian language there. We don't like torture, but we like lives. So we got to use torture, but we don't like it. Well, I would submit to you guys, the listeners, that they might like torture a little bit if people talk like that. I mean, they sound like liars to me. Moving on, unelected Canadian government financing terrorist groups in Syria. Canadian Minister of Foreign Affairs John Baird appears on the Qatari state media and affirms Canada's partisan support for the Syrian rebels. So, who are the Syrian rebels? Good question. Let's go over here. Syrian opposition, back to globalresearch.ca. Mossad, Blackwater, CIA-led operations in Homs, weapons from Israel, by Isra Al-Fas, April 26, 2012. I'll leave you guys to read that. And last but not least, from RedIceCreations.com, Grey Alien depicted on Canadian $20 silver commemorative canoe coin, January 6th, 2012. You can see the alien in the reflection on the bottom, and on the top, it's not a reflection. Kind of weird. Stories like this remind me of Project Bluebeam, and I would go look that up if you never heard of it.
Oh, and also there has been a lot of people protesting against increased tuition fees in Quebec. Alright, it wasn't just tuition hikes that were the issue, apparently. More information here from socialistproject.ca on the 25th of April, mirrored on globalresearch.ca. It's called Massive Student Upsurge Fuels Major Debates in Quebec Society. A crowd estimated at 250,000 people or more wound its way through Montreal April 22nd in Quebec's largest ever Earth Day march. They raised many demands: an end to tar sands and shale gas development, opposition to the Quebec government's Plan Nord mining expansion, support for radical measures to protect ecosystems, and other causes. And many wore the red felt square, symbolizing support to the province's students fighting the Liberal government's 75% increase in post-secondary education fees over the next 5 years. The Earth Day March was the largest mobilization to date in a mounting wave of citizen protest throughout the province. And there's more, but I'll leave that for you guys to read. Click here to see the protests that have resulted, which almost look like a war zone. So as you can see, there's not a very pretty picture of Canada being painted here. And this dark system of domination and enslavement is coordinated, like I said, and it's happening on a global scale. But I'm not saying this to scare you or to disturb you, because evil tends to happen when good people do nothing. So if you're a good person out there, try to do something. Because we are the resistance, and you are the resistance, and we must be the change that we want to see. And if you're probably wondering why I chose to put up that specific Gandhi quote, I'll tell you why. It's because I just had one of my two cats kidnapped from me because of the fact that I simply refused to cut off his balls, and also because of the fact that I want my cat to enjoy the outdoors. I don't want my cat to be locked inside the house at all times. Yes, despite the fact that there's a global covert aerosol operation that's constantly spraying chemtrails on us, and despite the fact that Fukushima radiation is all over the place, I recognize that there is value in sunlight and exercise. And so I'd like my cat to be able to go outside, but this culture that we live in really disagrees with that. And I submit to you that if we did not have a culture like this, then we would be that much further away from bombing my innocent relatives in Syria, along with all the other innocent people in Syria, on yet another military expedition that just represents neo-imperialism and our unwillingness to put a stop to this expanding empire. So our leaders treat us like animals. Maybe, just maybe, if we treated our animals a little better, we would get treated a little better. Maybe that's karma. I don't know, it's just a thought. So this is the disgusting and sick cat rescue organization that stole my cat for nothing. And if you scroll to the bottom, among trying to educate people and get these affordable programs going, they want to lobby for improved laws for the protection of animals, including legislation to control overbreeding for the enforcement of those laws. So these people basically make it their life mission to make it illegal to not fix or what I call mutilate your cats. Okay? And if you think that that kind of thing is far off, may I turn your attention to the official Halifax Regional Municipality website, where they say pet owners are responsible for the actions of their pets at all times. Responsible cat owners help their cats stay safe and longer by keeping them indoors, and I'll come back to why that's retarded, and understand the benefits of spaying or neutering their cats. And, you know, that already speaks for itself. And prevent their cats from creating an issue for their neighbors by complying with the regulations over here. And you can pause this and read this if you want. But if you scroll to the bottom and click discouraging free roaming cats, you can see that they say stuff like, why are they picking on me? Although a destructive neighborhood cat can be frustrating, don't take it personally. The cat isn't acting out of spite or picking on you for some unknown reason. He's behaving naturally. The problem, of course, is that he's doing so in places you find inappropriate. Now, me personally, I find it kind of ridiculous that my city needs to tell me to not take things personally. Just period, you know. I don't need that. I don't need the nanny state, and I don't need you guys telling me or the other citizens in this country how to not take things personally. Are my tax dollars going somehow towards writing this PDF? I don't even know. Maybe not, but you know, the overwhelming feeling I get is that it's absolutely ridiculous for these words to be printed on a you know, municipal government's official website. Now, going to Yahoo Answers here, someone asked, how do I get a stolen cat back from my neighbor? And basically this guy just one day noticed, after he lost his cat, and after, you know, there's lost cat posters everywhere, that his neighbor right next door actually has his cat. He saw the cat through the window. And listen to the kind of responses that this person is getting over here when he's trying to ask for help. I mean, this person responded with, if your cat was outside with no microchip, then it is considered a stray. And I'm going to have to stop right there. I'm going to have to let everybody know that there is a effort to chip human beings, okay, to put microchip in human beings. There's companies that make these microchips that go in human beings, and even the people who work at these companies they unlock their doors at work via the microchip that's implanted in them, some of them. Okay, and there's a lot more information about this kind of thing, and I would definitely encourage anyone interested with that to look into it, because ultimately the end goal here is to have a cashless society whereby you pay with electronic money that is hooked into a system that can be, you know, they could turn off your chip whenever you act out of line. That's the end goal. Now, moving back here, coming back to this story, she says, if your neighbors took him and are giving him a safe indoor life, I hope they get to keep him. See, this kind of statement makes me sick, and it just drives me absolutely nuts. And there's a lot of people like this. And this is the reason why I'm choosing to not actually leave the comments open on this specific YouTube video, because I don't know, it's just, I'm going to get a flood of hate mail just because I want my cat to be living in peace. This person says, outdoors is no place for a cat. If you are a pre-vet, you should know about the dangers for outdoor cats. My vet would never give me advice as to let my cats roam free. Ooh, great. I did too steal a cat that was abandoned, declawed outside. So this person also stole a cat, and she's proud of it. Moving on, it says, she is now an indoor cat with no intentions of going outside. Maybe, maybe not, but have you ever heard of Stockholm Syndrome? That's even if this woman is accurate in perceiving her cat feeling this way. But I think she's just pulling this out of her ass, to be honest. Moving on, it says, I vetted her, microchipped her, and registered her with the city. So if someone tries to claim her, I am the official owner now. Wow, so evil. If you don't take care of your cat and let it sleep all day, it will become obese. Excuse me? Like, what do you mean? You mean like go home from work early and try to toss a ball around with your cat? Like, you really think that's better than your cat chasing an actual mouse or something outside, a bird maybe? You know, that's why they have claws, so they can kill these other animals and eat them, not just so they can tear up your couch. Okay, household chemicals, and they say, oh, okay, moving on, they say basically my house is clean, so the household chemicals thing doesn't matter. Well, that's great, but not everybody does that. And how many houses have I been to where the people are smoking cigarettes inside? And by the way, cigarettes are made with radioactive fertilizer, and cigarettes have like 600 different chemicals in there that are all approved by the FDA for eating, but not approved for smoking. They don't know what the effects of smoking these things are, or at least that's as far as I know. If I'm wrong about this, please somebody let me know. But anyway, all right, so this individual really believes herself to be a responsible person. But nowhere did I see her mention anything about the cat's diet. Now, from Conscious Life News, I saw a Natural News article that was mirrored here. There's a link at the bottom to the longer version, so I'll go there. This was out April 21st, 2012, so relatively recent, again from Natural News. How to Have a Healthy Cat by Madeline Innocent. Now, I'll just scroll to the bottom here. The ingredients of most commercial cat food. The best food will always go to the more lucrative human market. Meat is expensive. Even tiny morsel that can be turned into a profit will be. Cats don't just get the dregs, they get what is deemed to be unsuitable for human consumption. Slaughterhouse waste, fat, etc., roadkill, euthanized animals from small laboratories, dead or diseased farm and zoo animals, even euthanized pets from veterinary clinics in some countries. And might I add, even if they're not getting that, I'm just going to say this right now, they're probably getting some beef that it has been fed growth hormones. So maybe that is another reason why cats might be fat a lot of the time. In addition to being inside and not getting any exercise, of course. Now, moving on, these are sent to a rendering plant. All this euthanized animals and roadkill and stuff are sent to a rendering plant where they can be left for days in any weather before being processed. The processing itself uses very high temperatures and pressures to kill pathogens. This process also kills and alters nutrients. That's important, folks. The euthanasia drug doesn't break down during processing. The end product has a preservative added, normally one that is considered unfit for human consumption on toxicity grounds, to ensure it keeps indefinitely without refrigeration. This is sold to pet food manufacturers. Because they didn't add the preservative, they can legally claim their product to have no added preservative. The pet food industry uses this product as their protein base, diluting it down with cheap carbohydrates such as fast food waste, newspaper, wow, sawdust, ground up nutshells, and anything else cheap on the world market. So they're diluting the food with newspapers. Isolated and synthetic nutrients are then added to try to address the nutritional imbalance. Synthetic nutrients cannot be digested or utilized. At best, they pass through your cat's body unused. At worst, they end up in parts of the cat's body they have no business to be. This sad picture may not even be the worst one. Better or more expensive commercial cat food may start off with slightly better ingredients, but the processing will be similar. Cats are carnivores, not omnivores. Cats eat the carcass they have just killed immediately. They don't scavenge as dogs do. They are unable to digest old or decayed meat. Cats are lone hunters, and they alone are responsible for their food. This means they have adapted to have light bones and organs so they can run fast, lightly, and for sustained periods of time. This means they are unable to digest vegetable matter, which takes longer. And I would personally also conclude from this that, you know, it's best to have your cat go outside. Moving on, the best food for your cat is food you have made yourself from quality ingredients. You can find more information on this subject here, and you can click that. One thing that they don't mention is these new energy efficient homes and the effect they can have on people's health. And not just people's health, but obviously the cat's health as well if you keep your cat inside. This comes from June 17th, 2011, also on naturalnews.com by Mike Adams, the Health Ranger again. It's called The Big Fraud of Green Homes. They suffocate their owners with indoor air poisons. I've been waiting to write a story on this subject for at least 2 years now, but until recently there wasn't any study to cite which would back up my position on this. But now a study has come out, and it's time to go public with information that will shock a lot of home buyers and home owners. Green homes are often a complete fraud. Surprised? Here's why this statement is true. Home builders know buyers want green homes, so they leap on the easiest opportunity to make a few simple modifications to the home and then slap a green label on it. To justify this green label, they seal off all the airflow between the home and the outside world, thereby creating an airtight home that has virtually no air leaks. Because this results in lower costs for air conditioning and heating, they call this a green home. And because home construction regulators are absolutely clueless about green living, this all gets the big thumbs up even though it is not green at all. And like I said before, people smoke cigarettes in their house, they have the Febreze, all that. Moving on, why isn't it really green? Because when there's no air exchange with the outside world, the density of toxic chemicals in the air inside the home skyrockets. Where a leaky home would vent out high concentrations of the toxic chemicals off-gassing from paint, carpets, glues, particle board furniture, varnishes, and construction materials, a so-called green home traps all these toxic chemicals inside the home, greatly increasing the risk of cancer to its occupants. See, so even if that lady from earlier, from this place here, even if she maintained that she had a clean home, maybe unbeknownst to her, the paint that is on her walls is giving her cancer. You know, maybe. And she gets to go outside, but I guess her cat doesn't. Meanwhile, moving on, even though these homes are called green homes, there is virtually no reduction in the use of toxic chemicals in the construction of those homes. So all the materials used inside the home are still the same nasty, toxic, cancer-causing chemicals used in non-green homes. It's the same paint, same glue, same caulking, same treated wood, same pesticide sprays around the foundation, and so on. There's actually nothing green about these homes at all. What's a green home? And I'll leave you guys to read the rest of this. I'll link it up. So take that, Halifax Regional Municipality, who recommends that I help my cat stay safe and live longer by keeping him or her indoors. It's my humble opinion that Gandhi would have agreed that the underlying mechanisms that are causing us to be so cruel to our animals, on the one hand, are no different than the World War being shoved in our faces on the other hand, culminating in a scenario whereby my innocent relatives might one day get bombed by NATO because NATO cares about them so much. We can vote for a leader who isn't a warmonger, but I'd say we'd be chasing our tails if we just did that. And I would say that ultimately the real change lies with you, because right now we have a sick culture that people barely are able to look at each other in the eye anymore. Nobody is confident about their position about anything. People can barely talk to you. People at the Occupy Nova Scotia movement, I tried to show them how one of the organizers there, who was at the General Assembly meetings, was being a dictator and he was being dominating. I tried to tell that to a couple people at that protest there at the park there, and you know what happened? They just wanted to hug me to diffuse the situation, like my rage was the problem, not the person who was causing my rage. And just from me talking to them and trying to explain the situation in a calm way, probably as uncalm as I'm being right now, that caused two people to cry. It caused them to cry. And they just have, I'm not saying I'm better than those people because I wouldn't cry in that situation. I'm just saying, if those types of people vote for a president or a prime minister who's not a warmonger, that's not enough. Because I'm sick of people thinking, oh, we got our guy in there, see you in 4 years. It's not enough. My cat got kidnapped for no reason because most of you are sick fucks. Wake the fuck up, because your ignorance is going to cause my relatives to die if you don't wake up. But you know what? If you think this is just about me and my relatives and Syria, then think again, because Syria is one of Iran's only friends, and Iran is allied with Russia and China. And if you take a look at the fake Arab Spring that's been happening in the Middle East over the past year and more, if you look at the destabilization efforts in Thailand and elsewhere, if you see that there's a lot of US troops being stationed in Australia, if you just look at a map of the earth, you'll see that this is the West trying to encircle Russia and China. And the purpose of this is to foment a third world war, which was written about by a high-ranking Freemason as far back as 1871. This comes to us from PackAlertPress.com. All three world wars predicted in 1871 by Freemason Albert Pike, posted by Truther on December 22nd, 2011. For those unaware of Albert Pike, this minion wrote these predictions in 1871, which have all come true, except the looming Third World War, which is laid out here as well. An American general named Albert Pike, who had been enticed into the Illuminati by Giuseppe Mazzini, completes his military blueprint for 3 world wars and various revolutions throughout the world, culminating into moving this great conspiracy into its final stage. These details are as follows. The First World War is to be fought for the purpose of destroying the Tsar in Russia, as promised by Nathan Mayer Rothschild in 1815. The Tsar is to be replaced with communism, which is to be used to attack religions, predominantly Christianity. The differences between the British and German empires are to be used to foment this war. The Second World War is to be used to foment controversy between fascism and political Zionism, with the oppression of Jews in Germany a linchpin in bringing hatred against the German people. This is designed to destroy fascism, which the Rothschilds created, and increase the power of political Zionism. This war is also designed to increase the power of communism to the level that it equaled that of United Christendom. The Third World War is to be played out by stirring up hatred of the Muslim world for the purposes of playing the Islamic world and the political Zionists off against one another. Whilst this is going on, the remaining nations would be forced to fight themselves into a state of mental, physical, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. On August 15th of this year, Albert Pike writes a letter now catalogued in the British Museum to Giuseppe Mazzini, in which he states the following. Quote, "We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a great social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to all nations the effect of absolute atheism, the origins of savagery and of most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the people will be forced to defend themselves against the world minority of the world revolutionaries, and will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitudes disillusioned with Christianity, whose spirits will be, from that moment, without direction and leadership, and anxious for an ideal, but without knowledge where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into public view. A manifestation which will result from a general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time." End quote. Pike, who had been elected as Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry's southern jurisdiction in 1859, was the most powerful Freemason in America. He would retain that post for 32 years until his death in 1891. He also published a book on the subject in 1872 entitled Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, in which he candidly states the following, quote, "The true name of Satan, the Kabbalists say, is that of Yahweh reversed. For Satan is not a black god, but the negation of God. For the initiates, this is not a person, but a force created for good, but which may serve for evil. It is the instrument of liberty and free will. Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not." End quote. Interestingly, in the same book, Pike emphasizes that Freemasonry is a religion based on the occult Jewish philosophy found in the Kabbalah. And we have a video here at the bottom which doesn't seem to be working. It says all 3 wars exactly predicted. Obviously this is about this, and it's no longer available. Big surprise. Now, this was not actually from Pack Alert Press, I guess. I clicked on the source, and it brings me to a whole timeline here from IamTheWitness.com. And I guess this is from a book, because it says books up here. Andrew Carrington Hitchcock, Synagogue of Satan, 1821 to 1875.
الله اكبر الله اكبر. قول العالم يا كلب قول. تعال انت تعال اقرب جاي يا كلب اقرب. قول العالم قول العالم قول يا موسخ يا دورغي يا كلب يا موسخ.
Am I saying this to scare you? No, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm not really that scared. I'm a little pissed off that my relatives might get killed, but you know, I'm not that scared, and what I really think is that there is no such thing as death. So even if they do get killed, it's, you know, not the same kind of feeling that most people get when they think of death. I just sort of feel bad for the general population that doesn't really have this cutting-edge understanding of consciousness and how it's a primary quality of the universe, not a secondary quality whereby your physical body creates your, I guess, consciousness through your brain. I think if more people understood that it's actually the mental world creating the physical world, then they could probably have an easier time tapping into that mental world, which is the source of all creation. And if they did that, then they would have an easier time understanding an age-old globalist trick that we should know like the back of our hands right now, which is problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem, unbeknownst to you that they were the ones who made the problem, who created the problem, and then they get your reaction to the problem, which they usually have predicted, and then they give you a prepackaged solution, which is supposed to address the problem that they created, and usually their solution ends up with more problems for you in the short term and the long run. That's what I'm saying here, is if we get a little more sophisticated with our language, and we do whatever we can to help encourage an attitude of love, respect, and honor, if we have that kind of atmosphere, then people will be able to function as they were, you know, meant to function, or we'll just remember more of who we actually are, because we're not a fluke. And that's something that is time for us to remember now. And you are not an accident, and you're a very important person, and free humanity needs you. So please stop feeling sorry for yourself. Please rid yourself of the old habits that no longer work for you, and try to help us build a better world that is founded on truth, justice, and liberty, if those are things that you like. they're not, then never mind. I'm Amir Alwani reporting for PotentNews.com. Thank you for watching.